Abundance is a state of being, and if you aren't in abundance and gratitude now, you're not gonna be in it when you get the thing that you think is gonna make you feel abundant. Even when you just start, things start to show up so quickly. The more I do it and the more I can find it, the more that actually has shown up.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I'm so excited because we are getting so close to our money challenge, and it just feels like the fresh energy that I've been craving. I feel like the community's been craving a way to connect with each other, to not only up level in our lives, no matter where we're at, especially around money and things that are related to money, but really expanding our ability to take in, witness, honor our abundance, our gifts, our genuine soul's essence, purpose, all of those things. Like, they're all intertwined with money. And I feel like the episode today with Mayssa is the perfect example of this. What if the greatest manifestations begin to unfold the moment you choose your peace over your paycheck? This is a theme that is coming up again and again and again when people are hitting their roadblocks with money. Yes, there are definitely people that are like, okay, I'm living my dream job, but I don't know how to set up my finances on the back end, or I keep overspending, or I don't have the skill set to know how to be good with money, or what I should do, or how to really make it work for me, right? That's one pocket. But then there's another pocket of people who their energy on the day-to-day and the ways in which they make money isn't 100% aligned. There is something they're settling for. There is something that feels like it's out of perfect alignment. And I think and I even have to work through this too. Even though I'm in a dream job and I'm loving what I'm creating, there are still tasks I have to do, or that I feel like I have to do in order to keep things running, keep things moving, right? And so now it's taking like a microscopic look at all those areas in our life. Do we actually have a choice here? Do we have freedom to really work towards creating the exact energetic alignment for our life, for our career, all of those things? And I think Mayssa's story, this process episode today, is going to show you what happens when you keep pushing in the ways that you think you should, but your body, your soul is telling you it's unaligned. And the power of when you can actually follow your soul, you can understand what the messages are that's coming to you and take those aligned actions, do that reprogramming, show up for yourself, caretake your inner child. Your whole reality can shift. It's stepping through those little microscopic fears. It's taking those little microscopic actions. All of this we're going to go into during the money challenge, but I'm just like, the energy around this, I feel like, is so big and powerful. So make sure you are a member of our Pathway membership. You'll have free access to the challenge for the entirety of it. It's going to continue. It's a 3-week challenge, but then you'll have access the rest of the summer, so you can come back to it and use it anytime. Be sure to check out our money quiz so you can see what level of subconscious self-worth you are on when it comes to money. Where are you starting out? What are some of the blocks? Maybe some of the self-sabotaging behaviors. It's going to highlight that. And that's going to be kind of our entry point into the challenge. We're going to say, okay, if we're here, we want to get to the next level, or we want to just up-level this experience to be more aligned, what do we need to work on? What is the block? What is the sticking point that's keeping us in the same repeated patterns when it comes to money, abundance, career, all of those things? And that challenge kicks off on June 2nd. We have our global TBM walk, which will be on May 31st. So if you want to host one in your city, check out our magnetic meetup page. You can register yours there, or check and see if there's one already set up in your town. We have one in LA, RSVP on the link in the show notes. I'm so excited to see you guys. And it's in nature. I wrote an email about this, about the abundance in nature and really using nature as a tool to regulate your nervous system. And I know we know this. It's like a tale as old as time, the most ancient wisdom ever from the earth. But I feel like now more than ever, and maybe because we're in spring, and so I'm seeing things bloom in a new way, and we're talking about the money challenge, but I'm just witnessing the magic and the joy and the honestly raw abundance that nature is. Like nature is our first abundant expander. It is literally showing us that you can die during the winter, you can cocoon, you can curl up, and then you can blossom into so many different flowers and scents and leaves and green and all of the things. That process shows you the abundance of life that's all around you. And we are no different. And it's not just putting money on a pedestal. That is one part of our abundant life. But what are those other places that we can go in? So please join us. I'm so excited. I feel like this is going to be a really, really, really magical one. And let's jump into the episode.
And now a word from our partners.
There is nothing that throws my day off more than bad quality sleep. I am groggy, I'm cranky, I cannot think straight, I have brain fog. It is not me being in my authentic self. And one thing that has supported me with my sleep every single time I've taken it is Ned's Mellow Magnesium. With so many different sleep products on the market, I really made sure to find something that was not only clean, totally backed by science and tons of research, but also didn't have a bunch of fillers and additives in it, which you see in so many products out there. Ned spent over 3 years just developing their best-selling Mellow Magnesium Super Blend. It's non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, keto-friendly, third-party tested. All their lab results are posted on their website, including a detailed description of what each ingredient's function is within the blend. This is the kind of transparency I'm looking for if I'm going to take something regularly. And I have been on subscription with Ned now for at least 2 years. I can tell you wholeheartedly that my sleep is significantly improved on the nights that I take the Mellow Magnesium versus the nights that I don't. And in part, it's because of the GABA, the L-theanine, magnesium glycinate, which all help to relax the body and calm it down, but also because there's 2 other forms of magnesium in there that help your body replenish the minerals. It has 70 plus trace minerals in there. And I think when we're deficient in any of those minerals throughout the day, from sweating, from moving around, from just being active, not having them impacts our sleep and our cells on such a big level. I cannot say enough good things about this product. I am such a huge fan. And if you are someone who's looking to up your sleep game in any real way, this is the best of the best. Become the best version of yourself and get 50% off Ned products with code TBM15. Go to helloned.com/TBM15 or enter code TBM15 at checkout. That's HELLONED.com/TBM15 to get 15% off. Enjoy.
All right, on to the episode.
So today we have on Mayssa. I'm so excited for your process. We actually found you on TikTok in your personal page, and then found your brand and everything. And then hearing about your experience with TBM, we're like, we have to have her on. This is amazing. I want to hear her transformation, but welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I've been a long-time listener and member, and yeah, very serendipitous how I made a random TikTok about TBM, really defending and standing up for the program, and I guess it came across your guys' radar.
Yeah, it was so funny because, you know, as the internet exists, people have different opinions, different styles, different things that they like. Yeah. And it's always so interesting seeing what resonates with some people and what doesn't resonate with others. But I think what really sparked my curiosity about you and like wanting to hear more of your stories was just how embodied you were sharing your truth and your experience. And then looking to your page and the brand that you're building, it was just very authentic. And it was very resonant. I was just like, oh, I want to know this person. I want to it was the feeling of magnetism. She's so magnetic. Like there's something about her aura that really like draws you in. And I think it's because you're speaking from that place of real, true authenticity. So paint us a picture, because we've talked and it's not always necessarily been like this. Kind of show people and talk through like, A, what is your childhood background and upbringing? And then we can kind of go into some of the other stuff from there.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I mean, that means so much to me. All I ever want to embody is obviously authenticity and cultivate that magnetism and try to capture it as much as I can. So really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, all the way back to childhood, you know, I was born in the DC area, like quintessential American suburban town, just 15, 20 minutes outside of Washington, DC in Virginia. My parents were immigrants. My parents are both from a very small country in northern Africa called Tunisia. Tunisia is it sort of lives at the intersection of a lot of cultures, which definitely speaks to how I was brought up, and maybe also a sense of living between worlds that I've always had, and I definitely had in childhood. But Tunisia sort of lives somewhere between like a Mediterranean culture and Arab culture. It is a Muslim country, but it's more secular, a little bit less conservative and traditional than some of the other kind of countries in the Middle East. Former French colony, I would say it's a country with its own identity crisis, but also such a rich culture and history, and a place that I'm so proud to be connected to, and grew up spending summers there. And most of my extended family were still there. So we were the only family that really was outside of Tunisia when I was growing up. So stayed very connected to the country and the culture. But then, you know, being here, I would definitely say we were one of those families where my parents were very afraid of us becoming too American. That's not to say that we didn't assimilate. My mom actually came here as a diplomat. So she worked at the Tunisian embassy. She had worked at the American embassy in Tunisia. So my parents spoke the language and, you know, knew American culture, but definitely wanted to like hold on to those cultural values and traditions and the family values that they had sort of grown up with. And I think that definitely as a kid growing up in America, you already look different, you already kind of talk different, the food that you bring for lunch is different, and all you want to do is just be like all the other American kids, all the other American girls. That was definitely something that I think was a through line in my childhood, and then it only gets worse when you become a teenager, right? I think that shaped a lot of kind of my childhood and adolescent years, for sure.
I can imagine too, trying to navigate who you authentically are amongst so much input that's coming at you, right? You want to value and honor your traditions and everything from the history, the rich history of your lineage. And then at the same time, you're like, but I have different interests or interests that are outside of that. And then what are my friends doing? What are peers doing? I always think it's the coolest thing when someone who has had that many pieces of input really fortify their authenticity beyond all of that, because I think it's like you have so much input coming at you, it can be really hard to decipher what feels true.
Yeah, and I think as young children, we have such a clear point of view. And I would say, I feel like I'm someone whose point of view became muddied very early. Like, I don't have that many memories, but I've seen videos of myself as a child, and I'm like, she knew what she wanted. She was bossy as hell. You know, she definitely like wanted to run the show, but I think it was at a pretty young age where I got sort of confused. And it's exactly what you're saying. There were so many inputs of who I should be, how I should be acting. Also, like a lot of things about how you should behave, I would say culturally. Also, you know, like a patriarchal culture that I come from. I mean, every culture is a patriarchal culture for the most part in the modern world. So then a lot about like how a girl should behave or how a woman should behave, that I feel like was getting programmed as well. And so I definitely felt that. And I think it took me a long time. And now I'm definitely having that like return to just feeling so curious and so like proud of where I come from and wanting to know so much more about it. And I was always proud of where I came from, even as a kid. But, you know, I grew up in a very white town. I was one of the only people of color in the town. So it's just kind of hard to know where you fit. And then also post 9/11 world, right? I think I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old when 9/11 happened. We were from the DC area, right? So like right in the backyard of one of the attacks. I had friends at school whose parents were in the Pentagon. So that was right in the heart of Washington, DC, which is the heart of the political climate. So that definitely colored a lot of those years for us as well. Like there were hate crimes in our neighborhood against another Arab family in our neighborhood. So again, and it's like I felt so American, But I think there was still this confusion. And then again, that resistance from my parents literally in the house being like, you're acting so American, or you're in Arabic, it's maybe hard to translate, but there's like a way of saying like you're kind of straying or you're walking the wrong path or something. And I was extremely well behaved because I was very afraid. So, I mean, this is obviously such a huge part of TBM, but speaking to like feeling like I became quite confused and I didn't know, I kind of lost myself pretty young. Like I would say if even 5, maybe even younger. I don't have a lot of childhood memory. I've unearthed a lot of childhood memory through the TBM process, which I'm so grateful for. But yeah, like I feel like my nervous system was very activated from a very young age. Like a lot of fear. Again, my parents were immigrants. Financial struggles were definitely there in the household. These cultural struggles. Now in hindsight, understandable why my parents were so afraid, but it manifested as like a lot of anxiety in the house, a lot of messaging of like ways that we were not safe as young Arab girls in this town. And in hindsight, we literally lived in like one of the safest towns in America. But that fear, I think, was just bred in the house. And you take it on so much as a kid because you have these kind of psychic abilities, I feel like, and you can just feel your parents' nervous system state, and it really gets handed down to you.
I think there's even studies on that, like the state of the parent's nervous system in the home literally imprints upon the child. And yeah, I mean, that must have been really, really challenging being in that state of fear, and also kind of a hard position for your parents as well, because their priority is keep you safe no matter what. They see these unprecedented things happening and they're not sure, like they can't control the outside world. So they're like, let's just have them as cautious as possible so they don't accidentally end up in a situation that could be really dangerous. And at the same time, I'm not a parent yet, but I'm like, how do you parent a kid when you're literally afraid for their safety and at the same time you don't want to instill fear in them 24/7? It's like a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, and I even had a realization that came to me in a meditation recently, like to take it back even farther of like my parents, how their programming and how they operate, the country that my grandparents grew up under French colonial rule, which was like,
Wow.
I can only imagine, like, don't step out of line. Like, a French military officer or police officer could do anything to you. There's no freedom. There's no rights under a colonial system. Then the colonial era ended. Tunisia gained its independence, and then it was a dictatorship. And in the dictatorship that my parents grew up under, I remember growing up as a kid there, you could not talk about the president. If we were sitting in a cafe, and I think when I got a little older, I have such a vivid memory one time asking a question about the president. I was always very curious about politics and stuff, and something like, why does he always get elected? Or something like that. I was just a kid, I didn't totally understand. And I remember my parents being like, don't bring that up. We never talk about that outside. And so something hit for me in a meditation recently that was like, imagine growing up what your programming is. Don't talk about anything. You could just, people in where they're from disappeared from their homes, popped up in jail, were exiled from the country for having political beliefs or for making political statements. So even just that realization of like, imagine growing up like that. Like we can't even comprehend. Like we have our own issues here, of course, but that fear state and that nervous system state of something really, really bad, like you could just say one wrong thing and end up in jail is something that I feel like you have to start having that compassion for what childhood or adolescence or what programming our parents were also receiving, especially coming from like immigrant backgrounds in different countries where we can't even understand what that would have felt like.
1,000%. And it also makes you really put into perspective the privilege it is that we even get to explore expression of authenticity. The fact that we are in a position where, for the most part, most people can, at least within the confines of their social circles or friends or whatnot, can express that authenticity and have the option to. And it makes so much sense why it's so freaking terrifying too, because of all the different places and programming and real danger that people were under. I mean, even still in so many parts of the world, it is so dangerous to do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, you have manifested crazy kismet, incredible things. One thing that stands out a lot, and I was thinking about this before going into the episode, I was like, okay, universe, what is like one thing the community really needs like a little bit of help and guidance on? And it came through so loud. It was like being seen. They need more expansion in that. And I feel like you embody that so much. And that was something you really stepped into, but it wasn't always so natural. So what did your life out of alignment and in the rock bottom look like?
Yeah, I feel like I was in a rock bottom for a couple of years, with little moments of like relief. But at some point in 2019, I had been tinkering with this business idea around healthy candy, low sugar candy. I was curious about it. And then somewhere in mid 2019, I decided I would take the leap. And I actually was listening to the TBM podcast, I think at the time. I had a friend who did the program, but I wasn't ready yet. And it would take a couple years to be ready to dive in. But I got married that summer as well. And then in the 6 months from summer to the end of 2019, it was like the walls closed in. Like I had already checked a parent into rehab earlier that year. They relapsed. My marriage was clearly within months not headed down the right path. And we had decided to take a break at the end of that year. I had managed to raise money from investors for this business idea, but the amount of stress that activated for me, it's actually something that I feel like we talk about in TBM, which is like almost when you manifest before your nervous system is ready to hold that manifestation. That's what happened to me. Like I raised a significant amount of money from investors. I had never done anything like that. I had so much fear around money. I had so much scarcity and lack mindset. As soon as that money was in the business account, it was like a ticking bomb under my bed. What if the business fails? What if I lose this money? What if I disappoint these investors? Waiting for the other shoe to drop. That sucked all the creative energy that had actually gotten this business idea off the ground and that had fueled my passion, which clearly those investors had seen in me. I feel like it just all got drained out of me in those couple months after. So a few months after that, end up getting divorced, COVID hits, manufacturing delays, supply chain issues, anything and everything under the sun that could affect a soon to launch CPG snack brand hits at the same time. And I just feel like from 2019, 2020 until somewhere around mid 2022, I was in a fight or flight state and I was just slowly burning out and I was becoming depressed, which I had never experienced or struggled with depression in the past in my life. And then at some point towards the end of 22, I was like, I'm struggling to get out of bed. It's I'm in a tough spot. The business was also struggling. We had a lot of supply chain issues that we just like couldn't dig ourselves out from under. So I had to stop paying myself a salary, which also catapulted this like huge financial stress for me. Luckily, from the beginning of starting the business, I had been able to take some salary and I had some savings. Savings were gone, salary is gone. And so actually, I feel like the end of 22 is sort of the rock bottom. I have these images of myself in my apartment, dim lights, friends texting me like, are you okay? And I'm just like, I'm just like trying to get through each day, answer whatever emails I need to answer so this business doesn't completely go under. And thank God for my co-founder, like shout out to her. I'm sure she'll come up, in the episode. And I manifested her like 100% for sure because she's been just such a highly aligned person and friendship and in my life. And so I had tried to start TBM at the end of 2021. I started How to Manifest and I bought the membership for the year and I just didn't use it. I feel like it's just one of those where you need to be ready, And then again, I'm like in this deep, dark place at the end and it's sort of end of year. So I'm also thinking about like, not resolutions, but more just what am I looking forward to next year? Is there anything I can look forward to? I need to make a change here clearly. And TBM popped to mind and I was like, immediately renew the subscription and we're sitting down and we're not seeing anyone or doing anything anyway, so we can barely leave the house. Let's just do TBM. So I did TBM. I think I did How to Manifest in like a month. And then actually because I had no salary, I moved down to Mexico City to save money. And that ended up being such a blessing. A friend of a friend opened up her home to me, gave me an incredible rate. She lives in the most insane apartment that's been an Architectural Digest. So also I had just started How to Manifest, and somehow I had no salary and I was living in the nicest apartment I've ever lived in, like eating the best food in the world, fresh organic food, going on walks in nature, but like as broke as I've ever been. So again, even when you just start, things start to show up so quickly.
I want to point something out there for people too, like two things. One is, I bet so many people are like, damn, I definitely signed up for the membership and did not use it the whole time. Release the shame if you're ever someone who has done that. And just know you're going to pick it up and commit to it in a way that feels aligned for you, in the timing that feels aligned for you. And I think the other thing that's really interesting about your story is like when people are in that low, especially if they're in and out of depression, like my heart goes out to you in that state, because that is so freaking tough to pick yourself up by your bootstraps at your lowest of low and just be like, I need to do something to change it. Because I know that feeling. I have 100% been there when it feels like you are in all the wrong directions. Everything feels messed up. Every area is wrong. I don't even know where to begin to change it. It feels so overwhelming. And that's, I think, where the depression comes in, because you're like, how am I supposed to get out from under this? It feels all consuming. And just having that one step, that one choice, the choice to renew, the choice to talk to a friend to figure out how I can be paying less money here, especially for anyone who is like, I am running out of funds, things are not looking good. What are the decisions that may be hard, but can actually really help and support you right now? Can you call that friend and get rid of your lease for a few months? Can you sell off your car? Yeah, it's not ideal, but it's going to help you so much longer in the long term, because you can just start saving a little, or you can get back on your feet. Those little decisions, that's how you get out of it. It's not a big sweeping, everything's transformed, I did it. It's a bunch of little steps that you're like, how is this really going to do anything? But that's the path.
And that descend down into rock bottom, Jessica, just something that popped up as you were talking, is like when you said you're trying everything and it just feels like you're turning over every stone and nothing is happening. But what came to my mind is like I was turning over every external stone. I was trying to make my business more successful. Wasn't happening. Trying to date someone. Miserable. Trying to go out to a party, drink, get my mind off of things. Trying to go on a trip. I was big into like, I'll just get on a plane and ignore my problems. I'm a Sagittarius, so it tracks. And I think part of why we need to hit the rock bottoms, let me not say that because maybe that's a limiting belief that we need to, but why so many of us do as part of our process, is that you have to go through this process of trying to get all this external relief to your internal problem. And then it's when you do take the step to make the inner change, which for me was the TBM. And obviously it can be so many things. And it's been multiple things for me. It's been TBM, it's been committing to breath work, certain spiritual practices, all of it combined. But the TBM really, to me, was the big one. It was only when I took an internal step that then also, and I was kind of at my wit's end, and I was like, you know what, my business, we might go out of business. We're running out of money. I can't pay myself anymore. But I had to come to some acceptance and come to the decision. And this required a little leap of self-worth that I think I was lacking at the time, to say, actually, me being okay is more important than the business being okay, is more important than people liking me, is more important than these guys that I'm dating thinking I'm cool. And what's more important to me right now is that if I have to lock myself in my house and do TBM or whatever that thing is for you for 3 months, I'm doing it. So yeah, that just kind of came to mind as well.
I love that. I mean, that's your higher self coming in and being like, nuh-uh, we need to take charge here. We cannot let all of these inner child parts run the show anymore. This is for your higher self. Like we need to come back to self here.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, in the time of the rock bottom, which I don't think is a coincidence, it's kind of like, what is there to lose at this point? It was, again, towards the end of 22. I really wasn't leaving the house much, but my best friend was like one of the few people I can just be around her and my brain can be turned off and it's fine. So I went and spent Thanksgiving with her. She also runs a business, a brand, and we were both like, we need to figure out this TikTok thing. Like, we're running our businesses. And I was scrolling TikTok a lot. I feel like I had some understanding of it as a consumer, but I had never created any TikTok content. I had an intern doing the content for Behave for my brand, and none of it was ever clicking. So me and my friend were like, let's just challenge ourselves every day for 30 days. Let's each make one piece of content that we post. And it doesn't even have to be about our business. And at this point, I was even like a little sick of my business. So I was like, whatever comes to mind, we just post it, we'll check in, it'll be an accountability. And within like a week, I just was really having fun with it. I did not speak on camera for the first probably 2 weeks. Again, it's like slowly being seen, like a little bit more. And then I remember one day, I don't know, I just got the courage and I spoke to camera. And that first video where I spoke to camera got like the most views I had. I think you're in 200, 300 view jail. I think that video got like 5,000 views. Instant grab. First off, the candy slot machine is real. The dopamine is real. But, but then I also was like, oh, interesting. And it was so random. I posted something about the World Cup. It was like about soccer. And then I did another speaking to camera, and that one did really well. And then it opened this gateway to being seen just on a very small scale. I felt safe on TikTok too, because I felt like no one that I know is on TikTok. It's just random strangers. I do continue to have to work through the fear of being seen as my follower count has grown, or I see people that I know commenting or liking the post, and I'm like, oh my God, people I know are seeing this. But then it was interesting because then I started doing TBM, and then I was having so much epiphany and so much inner realization and understanding, and I was just so curious about everything that I was learning and uncovering in the process. So I feel like TikTok almost became this journal for me, and it almost was part of my healing process in an interesting way. I just feel like I wanted to share what I was learning. I was so energized by it. I was feeling literally better by the day. And so, yeah, it just became this like incredible place for me to even just talk about what I was learning and coming into realization with and coming to grips with. Even like some of it is, anyone who's been in TBM, some of it is a harsh truth that's going to slap you in the face. And you can't always go to the parent that you're reconciling, your childhood trauma with, or you don't want to maybe put this kind of stuff on your friends or your sister all the time. So I feel like I was able to just bring it to TikTok, and that was it was so heart opening. And then my following grew very quickly, which was also really, it was just one of those interesting things where, to your point, I felt like nothing I could do in the last 2 or 3 years could work. And then finally just talking was suddenly like getting this interest and this attention, not that I ever intended it to or really needed it to. And then that was also like the beginning of a light bulb that I'm still kind of getting fully actualized. Oh, if you just exist, things can go well for you. If you just are yourself, people will want to engage with you in some way. And I'm really trying to start to embody this teaching. It's a spiritual teaching that comes up in a lot of different practices and definitely in TBM as well, of doing less to accomplish more. And I feel like that was the beginning where I actually got that validated for the first time, was like, I've never done less. I would just turn on my camera laying on my couch and just chit chat as if I was on FaceTime with a friend. And I would get hundreds of thousands of views on the videos and all this engagement and people really interested in what I was talking about and having this discourse. And it was really energizing for me.
I mean, I think this speaks to so many aspects. One, you weren't pedestalizing your worth with the success of the TikTok. You approached it from a place of complete curiosity. What is this thing? Let's figure it out. Let's give ourselves a challenge, 30 days. It's an experiment. I feel like when you can position things like that as an experiment, we're testing it out. We're seeing what works. We're like tinkering and going to see how this whole new ecosystem works, right? That mindset is really empowering versus, oh my gosh, I'm going to post on social media. This is terrifying. People are going to judge me. All these things are going to happen. And if I don't get 1 million likes, then it means that I'm a total piece of crap. That running the narrative. Not saying that never came in, but it wasn't the thing driving you to it. That's really important, like your intention in going into it. And as you would have maybe little tests or fears or getting new levels of like, okay, like I'm comfortable being seen like this. What about this? You got to do it in a way that Janelle Nelson, our EMDR therapist, talks about this, but like titrating, where with your nervous system, you can like give it a little bit, but not too much to overwhelm it, and then keep going and keep going. And that's why with nervous system work, with breath work, with somatic work, with even the exercises we have the first 5 minutes of the DIs, they're always like a little nervous system titration exercise. So you can start to feel like, ooh, okay, what does calm feel like in my body? What does an intentional breath feel like? What does this feel like in those moments when you're hitting stress, in those moments when you're processing trauma or doing something new or unknown? That is so, so key to gradually allowing yourself to step into that. And I love how you started off with not even posting your face, not even posting a talking video. It was, again, that titrating exercise of like, let me just share what I feel my nervous system is like. It's pushing my growth edge, but it's not overwhelming my growth edge.
100%. And I don't think it's any coincidence that this growth for me on TikTok started at the time I was starting TBM, because I don't even think my nervous system before I started the TBM work in a deeper way could have handled. Because I think the second I got a video with 5,000 views, I would have been like, what does this mean? Oh, and now I should talk about my I didn't talk about my products and my business on my personal TikTok for years. And I still actually don't. I mostly talk about it on the brand's TikTok, which is a whole story for a separate thing because that came around later. I think because I was already coming into this better understanding that I can exist in a calmer state and that that can be okay, and that not everything has to be some project, and my self-worth isn't tied to the TikTok. Still working on unlearning that my self-worth is tied to the business or to a relationship or to certain family dynamics or whatever it might be. So I think I feel like it was as I was doing TBM, like those first 3 months where I did, I think, a few of the core workshops, that I was, one, sharing a lot of what I was uncovering for myself in the content, and the content was performing well, and I felt calm and stable enough to like hold that type of success, that new way of being seen that I had a lot of fear around before, for sure. Like there's no question that that is something that I've always struggled with, and I'm still having to like uncover and keep expanding what I am able to hold when it comes to being seen in different ways.
Are you desiring to grow thicker, fuller hair? One of the questions I get asked the most is, what is my hair care routine? And every single time I point people to Act and Acre. Their product line has been incredible for supporting my hair growth journey because they address the problem with your hair growth at the root. When you get buildup from your scalp, whether it's from hard water, whether it's from other outside shampoos and conditioners that have a lot of lipids or processed ingredients in it, whether it's from hair care products, whether it's just dirt and debris and sweat and oil and sebum from your day-to-day, it is going to impede on how your hair can grow. So my key to healthy hair is a healthy scalp. If you are looking to really super speed your hair growth, I would recommend their stem cell scalp serum. It is formulated with Swiss apple stem cells, which are clinically proven to improve hair growth and boost hair thickness. This is something that you can put onto your hair after washing, massage it into the scalp, and let the nutrients soak up. If you are someone who has a dry scalp or has a lot of buildup on their scalp, I would recommend their scalp detox oil. That is something you'd put on your hair right before getting into the shower. Let it kind of break up everything that's building up on your scalp and also put nutrients on your scalp. And I also love their salicylic acid scalp exfoliator. I use that once a week, and that helps with all of the oil buildup. My hair can get greasy so fast, so that allows it to really dry out and naturally volumize. Since using Act and Acre products, my hair has felt so much healthier, so much thicker, and is growing so much faster than it ever has before. And we have an incredible discount for you guys. You can get 25% off with code TBM25 by going to their website, actandacre.com. We also have it linked in the show notes. You can go on, they have a little quiz. You can figure out which products are best suited for your hair type and scalp type. I'm telling you, their stuff is incredible. You can always DM me if you have questions about it, but I am obsessed. Again, that's code TBM25 for 25% off at checkout. One question is for someone who doesn't, you said you didn't have a lot of those memories, right? We get this question all the time. I can't really access a ton of those memories. How do you navigate the deep imaginings in that way? Like, how do you go through an unblocking process? Are you tapping into sensation, a feeling? What do you do in that scenario?
I'm someone who I feel like I had almost no childhood memory. Like I remember a few things more from I've probably seen a photo of it or it's been told to me as a story. But, I feel like in TBM and in the DIs, I definitely have had memory come up. Do I know for sure if what my memories have come up, if they were playing out exactly how they've come up? I don't know and I don't care, right? Because I think that the memory is representing something that is activated regardless. So the first time I did a TBM meditation, the first time I did a DI, I had this memory come up from, it must have been 3 months or 4 months because it was my mom going back to work and getting dropped off for the first time we grew up in this really small community and sort of like low income housing in the suburb where I lived. And there was like a woman in the neighborhood who kind of like watched, like she had a daycare there. And I had this memory of being like really young and getting dropped off there. And I know that, and I don't know if what I remembered in the DI is verbatim what happened. And I don't know if I really drew up a memory from 4 months old. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? I don't know. But it like brought up such a strong emotion of feeling abandoned at 4 months, right? Which surely was an experience that you would be having as a human baby whose mother has been feeding you. And if we were in cave times, would still be feeding you, right? And now she has to go back to work and you're in this strange home with other crying babies and toddlers. And, this wasn't like Upper East Side daycare. This was like immigrant family chaos house, and all the appreciation to that woman. And she was like my second grandma and love her and so much gratitude. But again, it's like, what does that feel like for a 4-month-old child who wants to be skin to skin with her mother, So what it brought up for me was so powerful. And it was almost like the first time I had conjured this emotion of this abandonment wound that now comes through in like so many different ways through TBM and through other stuff that I do. And it's like really helped me to understand some of my dynamics in love and relationships, dynamics with money, friendships. It just has this through line. And I don't know if I would have necessarily tapped into that feeling of loss and abandonment if I hadn't reconnected to this quote unquote memory, whether it was a memory or a remembered emotion or kind of experience.
I love that you say this because I think this is huge. And this is where people get really confused because they're like, well, I just made that up, or I don't know if that's real. Or even sometimes I've had what I really feel as memories. And then I'll ask my mom, she'll be like, that didn't happen. And I'm like, wait a second. Yes, it did. But that is exactly right, where it actually doesn't matter because your nervous system, your wiring feels connected to that story, feels like there is a pain point there. And whether it was that exact action taking place in that very linear way, or if that's your mind saying, this was the feeling I had around it, it was a scenario like this. If you look at your behaviors, if you look at where you self-sabotage, if you look at your core wounds, your biggest blocks, and it relates to that, that's an important memory. Really trust your subconscious to allow those things to be brought up that do connect to places where you do have like, wow, okay, if my younger self felt that, how would I nurture them? What would I say to them now? How would I connect to them, make them feel seen and heard and all the things? And that's what the Inner Child Workshop, Inner Child DIs, all that stuff is so good for. a part of you for some reason wouldn't just bring that up out of nowhere. You're not in the deep imaginings. It's not saying like, were you abandoned at 3 years old?
Yeah,
like you're not guided into that. It's like pull up any memory that wants to come up.
Yeah.
And if that's coming up, your subconscious is like, hey, there's something here that might be helpful to attune to, and not in a way that you have to be afraid of, but in a way that's like, how can we make that part feel safe again?
Yeah, and as you were talking, it also just came to mind for me, I'll just put it out there in case it resonates for anyone, is that I think some of the memories can be ancestral as well. We inherit our ancestors' trauma as well, like through epigenetics, which you guys talk about, so literally encoded into our DNA through this nervous system kind of inheritance that is passed down through generations. So, I've thought about this a lot too, where I have a fear sometimes with men and with relationships with men that can sometimes feel so strong that it doesn't make sense given my personal experiences in this lifetime with men. And in romantic contexts, at least, I've been very fortunate, but I have tapped into what relationships with men have looked like for my female ancestors, and I have started to have a better understanding of how that can be still living in my system. And I know you guys say this too, it's not to re-traumatize ourselves, it's not to sit here and try to conjure false memories or anything like that, but I think to your point, if something comes in the DIs, not over-analyzing it, but just letting it come, because it could be coming from so many different sources. And if it comes and it doesn't affect you, then maybe it doesn't matter. But if it's affecting you, then it's like, just trust whatever's coming up.
I think that's such an important part too. If you're like, okay, this memory came up, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure if I want to like heal that part of me. I don't even know if I want to spend more time there. That's totally fine. Take it at your own pace. You can explore it. You can work to heal it, whatever you want to do. Also, you can utilize a therapist and work alongside if anything super heavy comes up, but also taking a peek, exactly what you said. Okay, play an experiment. If there is some sort of nervous system dysregulation regarding that theme, do the patterns of my behavior in life today seem familiar to that narrative? And if so, there might be something to look at there.
Yeah, and you said the word narrative, and I love that because I think a lot about the stories that we tell ourselves, right? And that's the programming, that's like, there's so many different words for it. But I think that's what a lot of TBM and then just like a lot of the work I've done alongside TBM has been about, is how do I let go of old stories? And it's not to say that those stories are false. And to the point of like ancestral generational trauma too, it's like some of the stories aren't even ours, but they still live in us. And I think the DIs offer this incredible opportunity to start to better understand like what is your story around money? What is your story around love? What is your story around why you can or you can't get love or get money? I mean, you guys know it's all tied together. I learned that from you. Again, you have a story there, and however your system is going to reveal to you that you can heal this story or you can let this story go, like let that come through and let yourself move through it that way. And if you're resisting it, you may not be ready to let go of the story. That happens to me too, right? Some of these things there are things that have come up for me in the beginning and I wasn't ready to let them go until a year ago. Or I feel like the money is a good example. Now I'm trying to shift into this story that like when I do nothing, I actually make more money. If you had said that to me 6 years ago, I would have slapped you across the face. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Do less, work less, take a nap, go on vacation, you'll make more money. But like slowly but surely, I've built a trust muscle actually around that, because I've had so many examples in the last few years where I worked less and I did less and I tried way less hard and had way bigger results, financial and just energetically, and feeling more creative and feeling more fulfilled and feeling like a happier woman. And so maybe some of the stories that would have come up to be let go of a few years ago around that, I would have resisted because I wasn't ready to let go of it. I was very attached to the story that you have to work really hard to like earn $1 and it'll still never be enough. But then when the time has come for you to let go of the story, like you will receive the memory, you will nurture your inner child through it, and you will be ready to kind of like walk into a new story, or just let go of the story and walk into just your authenticity and your true like higher self and existing as your higher self.
We are going to be doing a money challenge for our mid-year challenge and really walking people through their authentic abundance, what that truly looks like to them, more than just money, but what does that really abundant life look like? One of the things that we created in this is like wealth consciousness levels, and not where your net worth is at, but like where your subconscious is in relation to interacting with money, where the blocks are, where the limiting beliefs are. And one major one on one of the levels is I have to grind. My time equals money. Like I have to trade my time and my effort, and everything is just so hard. It's this like hamster wheel. It's like the very patriarchal version of how we earn in society. And how can we break that? And that's what we're going to work through in the challenge, is breaking through whatever narrative everyone has. They can take their own through. But that is such a common one. And I think one that is so prevalent right now, I'm noticing it with so many women entrepreneurs, women founders, women in business specifically, that this is in their programming. They might even believe something different consciously, but subconsciously it's still showing up, and it's resulting in like extreme burnout, physical ailments, misalignments, blocked money, like all of these things. And it's like, we really need to reset this one because it is so deeply ingrained.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've really had to work at that too, because again, I was in a period of like super high stress, super low results. That's the bottom line too, is that I just wasn't getting very far. I was able to get to a certain level on just pure brute force. I think everyone sort of has a ceiling that like brute force can get you to. And for me, it was raising the money, but then treading water and being really, really not getting much farther than that. Some people's brute force can get them to a $50 million business or a $100 million business. But at some point, you do reach the breaking point, and probably along the way, you're also accumulating a lot of, the word negative karma came to mind, but I don't mean that in like a punishing patriarchal way. I mean it in like there will just be consequences for the way that you're getting to that point. And I think so again, it's like you can brute force your way to whatever like your natural sort of capacity is, and your natural capacity is determined by how you grew up, your nervous system state, your generational stuff, your physical health, so many things. And then you just crash, like you will hit the rock, you will kind of come crashing down, I think, for most of us. And sometimes I'm kind of grateful that I wasn't able to get that far on brute force alone, because it forced me like pretty early into my journey with my business to have that reset. If I had been able to brute force my way to higher level of revenue, like, you know, if we could have gotten to 20 million or 30 million in revenue with the brute force, then I would have had this $20 million business and been so miserable and depressed, but like had nowhere to go. So sometimes I actually have gratitude in a weird way for that I crashed out at the time that I did. The reset for me was so, I'm literally seeing like Mario getting like those little flower things like on a video game in Mario Kart. I'm like, the more I drive down the rainbow road and not down the scary road, I keep getting prizes. And so I feel like I'm getting a lot of validation of like just doing less. I mean, I was talking to you, Jessica, before we even hopped on, that the last 2 days I just have been feeling so burned out. And I actually worked from the park yesterday and today, and I got so much more done, I can tell you, than if I had forced myself into the office, forced myself to get a workout in the morning. So much more done, so much more like heart-centered work versus just trying to like ram through my inbox. I actually feel like I might need one more day, and I give myself that now, which I don't know if I would have a couple years ago. I would have just tried to push through and then just become incrementally less productive with each passing day.
I think also what you're speaking to there is a value which is in like a higher level of understanding, interacting with abundance, but it's already starting to implement and ingrain in your nervous system that the value isn't just in the productivity, it's in the alignment and when you're doing the quote unquote productivity. The value, and you also learned this early on in your rock bottom too, but the value isn't for everyone else to get this perfect plattered version of you. It's for you to have your needs met. And when your needs are met, everyone else's needs can get met. But it starts with that internal state and that internal shift. I mean, abundance looks like getting to be able to say, I'm not going into the office today. I'm going to lay down in the grass, calm my nervous system. And then when I feel a bolt of energy or excitement or interest, I'll pop in, and I actually will probably knock out more work in that, 20 minutes or 1 hour than I would have if I pushed through.
That's so true. And it also reminds me, sometimes I have to remind myself, one of the things when I decided I wanted to start a business and actually like take the leap off the cliff, I had read one book that was more of like, I would say in the camp of kind of new age manifestation stuff. But one of the things I wrote down during that time was I want to be able to wake up every day and decide what I do with my day. And I remember very clearly having that feeling, and because I had worked only corporate jobs up until then, and there had been a few times where I would be like, walking to grab my lunch at the corner, whatever place near my office, and I'd see a woman going to yoga in the middle of the day, or, just on a walk with her dog. And I remember just thinking like, I would love to be that woman. And to me, that didn't mean that I'm like not working, or that I'm now that I stay home, or that someone else is supporting me. Like, it just was, I felt like I could get there, but still do it in a way that felt embodied for me. In my head, it was, I'm going to build this business so that I can become her. So that after 4 years, 5 years, build the business, sell it, have all this money, have all this freedom, and then I get to go and take a yoga class at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. And now I sometimes have to remind myself that I can, this Tuesday, go and take yoga at 2 p.m. if I want to. Shifting into that also was so important for me to be able to start manifesting more and just like being a happier person, because before I was like, oh, I'm in the nightmare zone until I get to my manifestation, which comes after I build this business. That mindset was cultivating and creating so much misery and strain and stress. Like, again, the ticking bomb under my bed, like a ticking time clock of like, I just want this to be over so I can get to relaxing. And now I have to remind myself all the time, I started this business, I took on the risk to build a business, and all the hours and the mental energy that it takes, realizing that I actually, my manifestation actually came early. Like, I am now someone who can do whatever I want at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. And if I don't take advantage of that, and if I don't allow myself that, then I'm not living my manifestation. It's like the universe actually gave me my manifestation and I'm rejecting it if I force myself to go sit in the office on a Tuesday when I don't have to. I think that's a big one actually, is like receiving. Like, I think getting to the place where you actually can like see when your manifestation has arrived. This can be hard, especially in the beginning. And I still sometimes struggle with it, where I'm like, wait, the thing that I'm kind of complaining about right now was my manifestation. I actually worked on this a lot with money, because I realized whenever money would show up before, I'd be like, oh, I got a random check for $2,000 from the IRS, but my credit card still has da-da-da, and that's not even enough to pay off this. And I'm like, girl, thank you. Like, if you don't start thanking the universe, I've said this before on TikTok, but it's like, who wants to give more gifts to an ungrateful child, It's like, so just starting to really say thank you and actually notice when like your manifestations are here, I think has been important for me, because I can sometimes live in that like victimhood lack mindset and future tripping, like, okay, I got the 2,000, but how do I get the 10,000? Or, okay, yeah, like I can take a sick day, but I can't take a vacation. And it's like, okay, no, have the gratitude for what's already shown up.
1,000%. That is such a good point. People think abundance is like over there. Abundance, just like manifesting, starts here. It's the inside job. Abundance is being able to like go in your backyard and see how many green trees are there and the grass growing and be like, holy crap, look at all these living things, breathing, moving things around me. That is abundance. If you can't witness it in non-monetary ways, in the abundance of your relationships, or the abundance of your time, or the abundance of your freedom, or the abundance of your creativity, you're always going to judge anything that comes through. I think about that one parable. They say like, they're drowning in a river.
Oh, yeah.
The guy, yeah. And it was like, God send me a lifeboat. And he sent like 3 different versions and he was waiting for like this one idealized version. And God's like, I sent you 3 options. You rejected them all. Don't reject those little wins coming through, because I think sometimes we reject them because we're like, well, I don't want to get comfortable with that. I still have a bigger picture to go for. And it's almost like we fear that if we accept it, then we'll be stuck here, that we'll be settling. But actually in the receiving, in the accepting, it expands us. It allows us to hold more. It doesn't make us hold less or tell the universe like, we're all good over here. It's saying, wow, I'm so grateful. I can't wait to steward this $2,000 that came in out of nowhere. And like, what can I use it towards that feels really good and aligned? I think that's the mindset we need to get into with abundance.
100%. And it's like, and I'm still like fully wrapping my head around this sort of like spiritual concept, but I'm getting there, which is like abundance is a state of being. And if you aren't in abundance and gratitude now, you're not going to be in it when you get the thing that you think is going to make you feel abundant, because your core state is wanting. So actually, even when you have a yacht and $50 million, you live in wanting. You only need to accumulate so much stuff to realize that getting stuff is not going to change your inner state. And I think some of us think that like, yeah, but $10 million would, or but $1 billion would. But have you checked out the billionaires? It doesn't. And I think getting to that realization, exactly what you said, like, I love my apartment. I'm so grateful. I live in like the cutest little 1-bedroom in my dream neighborhood in New York City. How many times before TBM, did I lay in this apartment and think, but I want a loft and I want a 2-bedroom and I can't, and I want to get there and let me make a mood board with how I'm going to decorate my apartment when I have this, and that. And like, I remember being like 20 something years old and someone telling me that she had a girlfriend who had just gotten divorced and she was single and she was paying $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And it blew my mind. I was like, someone's paying $3,000 and she's like a single woman, which I also feel like I didn't have that many examples. When I first got to the city, a lot of my friends were couples. So people who had nice apartments usually were 2, double income household. And I like that story just really stuck with me. And sometimes I have to be like, that story blew your mind when you were 23 or 24. Like, you're her now. You have an apartment that you pay for yourself, that is your own beautiful space in a neighborhood you never would have thought that you could be living in. And especially not without like a double income, which, I thought I had until I was getting divorced. And just getting here and being like, this was the manifestation. Like, don't miss it. Don't miss it. And I love what you said, Jessica, because I think I am that very ambitious personality type where I'm like, I'm going to wake up 10 years still in this apartment. And it's like, that's not what we're saying. Relax. We're not saying that you're never allowed to move. Just like enjoy this one. And then I feel like when you get into gratitude, that is an abundant energy. And then first off, the gag is then you actually, if you're here in 10 years, you're still going to love your life. That's the gag of it all. But then the double gag is that when you start loving this one out of nowhere, the other one, the bigger one, or the next one, or maybe the smaller one, maybe actually you didn't realize your dream is to have no lease and to live out of a suitcase for a year. And then that becomes your manifestation. So it's like, once you get into abundance and gratitude and obviously finding more presence through that and living more today and not trying to live in tomorrow or dream of tomorrow. And the more you live in tomorrow, the more today seems miserable because it's the wanting. You just live in wanting. So I struggle with it a lot. I don't want to sit here and act like I'm some Buddhist monk who like meditates gratitude every day. I'm not. But the more I do it and the more I can find it, the more that actually has shown up.
You've heard us talk about our Pathway membership, but what actually is it? It is an all-access membership where you can get every single workshop that we've ever created, all of our deep imaginings, which are our reprogramming audios, to help you manifest. You can access it on the desktop or in the TBM app on your phone directly. We, of course, have our foundational workshops, such as our How to Manifest workshop, which takes you step by step through this neural manifestation process to actually unblock, expand, and take aligned action to connect with your manifestations. Our How to Be Magnetic workshop, our Inner Child and Shadow workshops. And then, of course, we have a workshop if you are in a rut, if you're in a rock bottom, if you're in an up level, perhaps you need to set boundaries. Maybe you want to focus specifically on the block of money or love. It is all in there. And then twice a year as a community, we gather for our challenges. Our challenges are one of the most effective parts of the process because you get accountability. It is really a handheld experience in how to work through whatever the theme of that year's challenge is. And now to my absolute favorite part of our membership, which I think in and of itself would be worth the entire weight of the membership if we just had this alone, our Deep Imagining library. This library encompasses over 60 neural reprogramming audio tracks. They're self-hypnosis tracks that will really support you in any step of this journey. If you're needing calming, nervous system regulation, unblocking with a specific test or trigger, going through a difficult time, processing a big emotion, or maybe you just want reinforcing, how to reinforce those neural pathways of confidence, abundance, self-worth, deservingness, and connection with your dream life. And not only that, if you go to the app, we just launched Deep Imagining playlists where we're grouping different themes of DIs together. So no matter what you're going through, you have something for you. And we're constantly dropping new playlists as well as brand new Deep Imaginings. And if you need more support in your process, you can go to our brand new video series, Channelings with Lacey, where she touches on the exact energetics that are going on right now in manifestation and how it may apply to your life. So obviously, I am a huge fan of this membership. The peace of mind I get from being able to have all the tools I need at my disposal, no matter where I'm at with my life, if shit's hitting the fan, if I'm feeling dysregulated, if I'm needing to come back to my center, if I'm needing to brainstorm or daydream or connect with what my vision for my future is, every single tool is in there to support me. And don't just take my word for it. We have thousands of testimonials of people who have had incredible success stories with these tools. So take the guesswork out of your manifestation process and get real tools that are going to give you real results. For podcast listeners only, you can use code EXPANDED, all caps EXPANDED, for 20% off your first month of the pathway. Join now and have your best year yet. I think about this too with friends who are in between jobs. I mean, with the job market and everything going on right now, there's a lot of fear out there. Okay, I saved up my FU fund. I'm ready to jump off the cliff. I'm going into my next thing. And it's really interesting watching how different people interact in that state, because I totally get it. If you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from, if it feels really unknown, that is really scary and really destabilizing to the nervous system. And you have a lot of free time. And so can you, even during that, it's really hard, but like balance the nervous system energy of like, okay, I have a lot of fear, but let me work through the nervous system and then let me take aligned action towards whatever I want, as my next job position, income portal, whatever it is. And then how can I actually just enjoy this pocket of time? I'm not going to be unemployed forever. I know that. So if I only have a month, 2 months, 3 months that I'm here, how can I go to the beach in the middle of the day and still be applying for jobs? How can I actually let myself feel abundance in little tiny ways right now? I feel like that's such a key of shifting the mindset of when you're in between those phases of income too.
It's such a good call out, and I think it all comes back to the nervous system, and it really makes me think of that time where I had to move back to Mexico City. I was living off a credit card. I had no income, but that is when I started growing my TikTok following and this really fun, I don't want to call it a side project. It's not a side, nothing. It was just this fun creative outlet that I developed in this time where our business was a little bit on pause with a couple things. We were changing some things behind the scenes and I had all this time and it was hard and I was freaking out. Many of those days I was freaking out, but I'm so glad I was at least doing the TBM work, which when I would have a breakthrough in TBM, it would buy me a week or two of just, everything is fine. I'm just going to go sit in the park. I'm in Mexico City. I'm going to listen to the birds chirp. I'm gonna go salsa dancing. I'm just gonna do things that make me feel really abundant. And again, brokest I've ever been, living off of a credit card, but it all worked out. And I think it really came back to that nervous system regulation, finding ways to just shift out of fight or flight and into rest. I think also when you can find presence, it's am I safe right now? Yes, my rent is going on my credit card. First off, gratitude that a credit card company gave me credit to be able to put my rent on. And also, that's a problem that lives on a computer somewhere. That is not a present day problem. I'm sitting in a park on a sunny day, or I have my journal in front of me, or I have my book in front of me. To the extent that you can at least find some of that presence, it's not to discount obviously how activating and all the childhood stuff that will come up in a state of being between jobs or having financial insecurity. But I will say being on the other side of it, I have a lot of gratitude now that I went through that experience of, I racked up we were getting close to 6 figures in credit card debt in that time. I've almost paid all of it off through several manifestations and miracles and in a pretty short amount of time, in less than a year. And I think you just need to get grounded in the knowing that it's going to be okay, and that, not to be too much on the woo-woo side, but it's the universe is not going to present you with a challenge that you can't overcome. And I think what you said, Jessica, too, it made me think of this about you actually have all this free time. That trip, I think back on that time when I was really worried about the credit card. I'm I should have gone to Japan. I've been wanting to go to Japan. That's a 2-week trip. It's so hard to carve out 2 weeks. And now that I don't have that financial weight on my shoulders, I'm I should have just put it on the credit card, to be honest. I'm not, this is not financial advice, disclaimer, but I had the time, and I think about it a lot with relationships too. I feel I've seen this around social media somewhere, which is you don't know when you're going to get in the relationship and that free single girl time is going to be gone. I think that can actually put you in such a state of presence and gratitude for where you're at right now versus the wanting, right? I just want to be in the relationship. I just want to find the person versus this could be my last summer as a single girl hanging out around New York with all my girlfriends. I could, you don't, especially as we get a little older into our 30s, I know people who meet someone and they're having a baby in a year. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's you could meet someone and be having a baby in a year. So enjoy this. Same with the job thing. It's your dream job is going to show up and maybe you start a business or maybe you go back to school. That's going to happen. That's coming, no matter what, it is, or whatever the thing is going to be that is going to take care of you is going to show up in its kind of divine timing. And in my sort of personal belief system, you're going to miss the time when you could just sit all day in the park and just hang out, even if the credit card was racking up. I definitely relate to what you were saying there.
Someone who's racked up debt and has paid it off, any tips or insights for people? What was the most key important thing that you think you wish you would have known, or you think was part of the impetus that got you over the hump there?
So I want to fully disclaim that this is not financial advice, but I'm just going to speak to my own personal experience. So for me, I feel I had to shift into an abundance mindset, and then the answer presented itself in a way that I never could have expected, which is what they always say about so many manifestations too. It's I could never have written the book of how this would have happened. But effectively last summer, I was actually hitting my limits on my cards. Mid getting into high 5 figures, my cards were starting to decline. So I was kind of reaching a point where I was something is going to have to change. Business was running out of money, so still couldn't take a salary from there. I had a consulting job that had ended, that was helping pay some of my bills, but it had ended. So I was like, I need to find another consulting job. And I was like stressing about it. And I was taking calls with like really low paying consulting jobs to do things that I don't even do for my own company, like social media and email marketing. Like I hire interns to do that stuff. I still love it, but just because it's not something that fuels me from like an execution perspective. So I knew it wasn't even in alignment from like a creative energy perspective for me. But I was like taking these calls really desperate. None of them were working out, and thankfully so. And then a family friend's wedding came up in Europe, and I was like, I can't go. Like, I just absolutely can't go. And then something in me was like, you have to go to Europe. I can't explain it. It was like, you have to go to this wedding. You'll figure it out. And if you're going to be in Europe anyways, I've never been to Greece, and I just had this feeling I just needed to go. And I know how bratty this all sounds and irresponsible, but I also really am quite spiritual. And so I just kind of, it was a ping,
You had a really
right?
strong
So I
trust
followed.
muscle. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a super strong ping. So I followed the ping. I went to Europe, and I found myself with 2 days to myself before my friend met me in Greece, and I reread The Alchemist, which I also think has some weird magical power in it if you've ever read that book. And then I got this energy for a few pieces of aligned action that I literally did from that beach in Greece. And then I came back. I also made peace with the fact that I might have to close the business. I did mushrooms while I was in Europe. I did a mushroom trip, and I had a lot of peace during that trip that we might have to close the business. I had to step into the self-worth that like, I can't just kill myself for this business. I felt so much loyalty and indebtedness to my investors, but that was not a reason for me to like ruin my life and be living the way that I had been living for the last year. And I came back and I shared that with my co-founder. And then a week later, an investor showed up out of nowhere and invested a couple $100,000 into the business. And it was enough for me, because part of what was racking up my credit card debt was I was also personally covering a lot of expenses for the business, and I was able to pay myself back for expenses that I had covered for the business. I do some music stuff. I got a job, like a consulting job related to music. And then I got a few social media jobs that all came in the span of like the next few months. That basically got me down to like less than 25% now that I'm just kind of chipping away at for the rest of that debt. But I just say all of this to say, and again, I don't want this to come off as financial advice. I think everyone has to follow what feels right to them. But the more that I was able to step out of the math and the equations, and for me, that doesn't work. Maybe if you're a Virgo, maybe if that's your personality, like you should go about it that way. But for me, Sagittarius, have always carried this burden of lack that was never mine. I feel like I came into this lifetime to be very abundant. I think all of us did, but I feel that like so strongly to my bones. I mean, even as a child, I had the most expensive taste for like, a not super well-to-do immigrant child. And taking that trip to Europe, I think unlocked something in my brain and for me, like spiritually, which was this debt is not going to define me. I can live in abundance, and I can trust that I'm actually going to solve this problem. And actually, maybe it's not a problem. I can't see beyond what's right in front of me. So let me actually just trust myself. And then, we didn't even get into some of the business stuff, but then like a month later, my brand went viral on TikTok. And that happened when I was sitting beside a swimming pool and laying out on a Wednesday. So
oh my gosh.
Again, that trust muscle just got reinforced a lot last summer, which was like, when I do less, I accomplish more. And when I step into abundance and I trust that if you're this stressed out over 5 figures of credit card debt, what is the life you're manifesting? You're manifesting a life where you could theoretically pay this off in a day if things were to line up, if things were to start going your way. So to become debilitated over this is actually very out of alignment with the life that you're trying to build, with what you say you're trying to create with your business, with the kind of financial world that you're trying to build. And I have now noticed a pattern, especially on the other side of this, that for me, I learn my lessons hard, rock bottoms, and then very quick catapults out of them. And I shift into a new state and higher states of abundance very quickly. I'll get stuck somewhere for a while, but then I will shift, like with this one, with like the money that showed up through the investor and then shifting, it all happened in like 2 weeks. And I'm realizing that as a pattern. So now I'm trying to build a trust muscle around that, which is like, even when I can feel like the walls are closing in and things aren't going my way, I now have a new story, which is I'm letting go of the old story, which is things never work out. The other shoe's always going to drop. I'm going to end up in financial ruin and collapse, and there's never enough money. My new story is actually my financial situation can change very quickly and very drastically, and it has before, and it will again, and it will continue to. And the more I believe that, the more frequently it seems to happen.
Oh my gosh, so good. Where can people find you, connect with you, all of the things? Because especially if you're sharing insights on social, I imagine you're going to have a lot of questions after. Everyone's going to be like, okay, wait, but like break it down for me, girl. So where can people connect with you?
So I'm at Mayssa Chahada, first and last name on TikTok. My Instagram is just my first name, at Mayssa. And then the brand is Eat Behave, or Eat Behave on TikTok and Instagram, if anyone's curious about our candy.
Thank you so much. I mean, your story is so expansive on so many levels. And I also really want people to think about that quantum leap for you. How do you almost have blinders on in certain ways where it's like, oh, I can only change my life in these tiny ways. I can only pay off debt with $50 a month. Are you limiting yourself to all the wild opportunities that might be out there? Not that you have to get stuck with any of them, but just being open to like, okay, this can change. I need to stay in alignment. When I stay in alignment, the pings will come through, the clarity will come through. I will act on them. I'll be in integrity when I act on them. And when that happens, it opens doors and it allows for miracles and it allows for manifestations in such big ways.
I work with a spiritual coach, and when I was in this position last summer, and I was like, but this is what's realistic, and it's not realistic that it's going to take 5 years. And she said, do we live in the world of realistic, or do we live in the world of miracles? And she kept repeating that to me, and I feel like that was an unlock. I don't want to live in the world of realistic, that 5 figures of debt takes 10 years to pay off, and you have to exactly what you said. I'm not going to live in that world. It's a choice, and I'm going to just choose that we live in the world of miracles. And then a miracle showed up.
So good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Mayssa's story is just so powerful. I feel like there's so many expansive bits in it. And a couple of DIs, if you guys want to keep you're in that state, you're just feeling so inspired from this episode, you think it's possible for you, I would think about what is that one empowering belief. If you have a limiting one that you've been riding on this whole time, what is that one empowering belief that you can start to just plant the seed of right now and go over to the new beliefs reinforcing DI and listen to that DI? I would say that one, or the magnetic self DI, to really anchor in the possibility of how good it can feel to be in your own energy, to be in abundance, to be in alignment, to just feel so magnetic. Because I think whenever I hear really amazing expander stories like Mayssa's, I'm like, I want to capture this feeling and run with it. So those are 2 DIs I would highly recommend. And we will see you all next week.